Hello and welcome to another tutorial. This is Kevin, also known as AKAAWOL, and today we are making another bag. This time it's red and blue, and maybe you might think of it as like fire and ice. In this build there is 16 strands per loop, 6 loops, 96 strands in all, and each is a 1/3 length. I've basically shoved all of the red over to the left hand side and all the blue to the right hand side, with the exception of one each. There you can see that there's just one single blue over there on the left hand side, and on the right hand side it's actually yellow, but still it counts from the other. So it's basically, I was doing it sort of like a hot and cold, right? Because your hot colors are your red, orange, and yellow, and the cold colors are blue, green, and purple. So it's kind of divvied up that way. The reason why the one is separated out, I've done this in the previous tutorial, but the reason for that one is as those reds are coming across, it will make all of those basically, so there's like 8 on the red side and 8 on the blue side. All 8 of the reds will all be facing in the one direction, and all 8 of the blues will be also facing in their own direction. And this makes it easier when you start to join them together. You don't have to actually bring it down that one extra knot. It just makes a cleaner look up at the top of your bag. So, or if you're making it, like I say, a double wide, this is how you would do that. In this case, we are using the same basic method of how I did that card holder. And the idea was that, you know, throw the dice, and a 6-sided dice, right? But if you take and subtract 1 from everything, so that way 1 becomes a 0, and with a 0 that means you can line up 2 next to each other. So essentially I was going to go with like that as my like mathematical thing, just as how I did the card holder, right? And the card holder, I really stuck with the whole what was coming off of the random. In this instance, I didn't want as much of the undercolor showing up as much. Originally, this was going to be a bag where I was just going to go red halfway down and then blue for the rest of it. And then the card holder came up. Now, mind you, I have like a little magnetic, what is this, dry erase board thing that I have like ideas set up for like what my future projects will be. So this was one of those future projects, and after doing the card holder, I was like, wow, wouldn't it be fun if there's just like specks of blue showing up through the red, and then bits of red showing up through the blue. So the original idea got altered. So if this is a little too much for your tastes, by all means try it without. Try it just to make it like a candy stripe coming down, and I'll kind of show you how to judge where to make the changeover. So you can see I'm basically put together all 6 of the loops, and then you can see there I was kind of working with the calipers trying to figure out like where's the spot. And basically I figured out that I wanted it like, if you were to take a row straight down from the low point of the thing, it would be 12 rows. Well, it turns out if you want to do that, that's 24 knots coming down before you hit to that. So, and now you can kind of see where the change up is happening. When it gets down to that blue one, right there, right? It's going, the blue comes and just changes its direction. It causes the red to come off to the left, and then the blue takes over. And I did use a pair of calipers just to kind of make sure I was in the ballpark of like where I imagined this thing to be. Because I really had a picture in my head of exactly what I wanted to create. And yeah, I have to say in the long run, it came out better than I expected. I really like this bag a lot. It's a little bit more you can just tell better, right? How the blue is now what's going off to the right. Mind you too, an alternative to this would be you get to that point and then the blues start going off towards the left, right? I just favor going off to the right. It was the first knot I learned. But you can see that there's room for changes in this pattern. If you want to like try this out for yourself and do something that's basically never been done before, you know, I left a lot of room for that right here. Let's see, what else can I tell you? There's not a lot to this. I mean, for the most part, the reds and the blues, they're just, you know, a simple right knot, left knot. It's only where they do the changeover. The blue comes over with the half left and then turns to the right. Also, where that joining thing is happening, I have made it so it's 2 knots all the time right there. So like I didn't interrupt it. Kind of make that line a little bit more noticeable or something, I guess. I really wanted to show that there was a nice straight line happening. Although there's a few blues that kind of touch in the red side of it, but still, it's really a thing. Oh, my reminder, yes, please subscribe. And if we get enough subscribers, maybe I'll stop tormenting that poor robot. Okay, so now I'm joining the two ends together. At this point, I have to say, I mean, I was pretty stoked. I could see that this whole thing was sort of going in the direction I wanted. It just has it's just got a good look to it. Mind you, I'm only coming down part way. Oh, and I didn't make a diamond down like I normally would have because I wasn't sure like how far I had. And it turns out I was really close to that blue line. So if I kind of came down in a diamond form, I would have had to back out a whole lot of knots. So I was really happy that I didn't mess that up. I then had to find where the same amount. So if you count from where the valley of where the loops are down to the where the blue begins, I had to find that same distance to go from the blue line to where the base was going to begin. And you'll see with this base, I was going to divide it into 4 so that, you know, I could create the easy base. So again, if you're not confident in making bags yet, this one definitely has an easy way for you to do it. I've divided the 96 by 4, which is half of 48, 24. So, right, that's kind of how the little diamond things are. And it's just, so yeah, there I took and counted out so if it's 24 for the bottom diamond, that means it's 12 up one side, 12 down the other side, counted up to 12, and I don't cross that. So I've kind of put the strings around the back so I wouldn't accidentally do those. At this point, the bag is really, like the high point on the left is making it difficult to bring the strings down for the right. So I can only like bring down a few, have to rotate it and bring down the rest. So on the right bottom there, you can kind of get a gist of where the high point is of those V's. So I have to bring down enough strings to create the next part of that V there, right? So yeah, there's a whole lot of math involved. And I know it's not like the regular math that like you thought you were going to blow off at school. There's like this whole weird thing about, I don't know, maybe it was in school. Maybe it's just I never got into geometry or something. But yeah, I find that it would be really helpful if I was better in math when it comes to some of these things. But yeah, it's 12 on one side, 12 on the other. That's 24 strings. You do that 4 times, you have your 96 strings. And then each time you you know, do off one of those diamonds, the whole thing gets faster because each time it's just a shorter row. And you can kind of, it's not just because of how fast it's sped up. Again, I really didn't want to make all my videos like time lapse, and the only reason they really are is because I took a look at how much footage there was, it was a ridiculous amount. There's so many hours go into making one of these. So it is what it is. If you guys want to see how to do it, I think this is kind of the best way. You get the whole gist of exactly what was happening. It also, because you're seeing all of the bag being built, it kind of helps me to make sure that I don't kind of skip over some portion of it. So now here comes the last of the little diamonds. It was pretty easy overall. Like I said, I normally would have followed the random thing completely. This time I try to create my own number system, and yeah, I think I did okay. So now, like the previous one, the first two strings, they go in automatically. Now changes, the next two strings make a knot, and then they get pulled through. And then the next two strings, they get tied together in a knot, and then they get pulled through. Now, because this is basically like a square, it's going to pull in a form that's sort of square-ish. And so when you get to that last one, it gets a little bit more dicey. In fact, I don't tie the last two strings on any of these four sides. And even then, I still ended up having to use the needle and thread to pull the last ones through. That elastic puller would not fit through there. So just a heads up with that. That's there was absolutely no gap whatsoever for this thing. So just kind of want to bring that up, because in case you only got the elastic puller, yeah, you're probably going to need a needle as well. All right, so see, 4 left, just tie these two, pull that through, and then rotate it around to the next side. And you can see like those two sides are like seamed up really, really good, right? They all do that. They all do that same thing. And yeah, it really kind of covered up. It's, when you look at it, you kind of know that must be where it is, but at the same time, you really can't see it. It's pretty well hidden. I really like that a lot. I think it has gives it a fun kind of look. Granted, the spirals, that's a whole different beast. That's a whole different level. But I want to be able to have something for you guys that maybe aren't quite ready for that. When it comes to turning this thing inside out and tying stuff off inside, you have to be careful, because that little bracelet knot that you know, the regular little half hitch or whatever this is not sufficient in tying it off, you know, if you're going to like using the bag for anything. So you have to give it a good like square knot on the inside, and make sure that you're tying off things that are not going to let it come unraveled later on, because that's a real thing that could happen here. It's not like, you know, like with the spirals where I go over it 2-3 times and it can't unravel even if I cut it short on the inside. This completely could. So you will have to knot things off. And then the, 2, 4, 6, 8 strings of the center, that goes into one great big knot right in the middle, and that'll hold all those together and keep the bag nice and tight. So just a kind of a heads up on that, because that would make a huge difference. Also, when you're pulling it all through, you can't really see what you're doing. So when you first turn this thing inside out, there's a lot of tangled mess, shall we say. And that's normal. There's kind of no way of getting around it that I can tell. I still have the same paper cup inside, keeping the shape. It's just easy. It's just like a, I don't know, it's a disposable cup. It's not really paper. It's, I think, made from corn or something. It's biodegradable. I cut the bottom out of it and kind of gave it a crinkle so I could shove it down into the bag. It helps keep the shape and makes it a little bit easier to draw the string through. So that helps out a lot. Just simple thing. This is just, my clipboard is raised up on some Legos so that I could use the clip so I can rotate it around and work with it. What else can I tell you? I can tell you that there was still a fair amount of string left over. Doing the easier base, it might not actually have to be the whole 1/3 long. But seeing as how that was the length of the string I had, that's what I went with. I might have been able to get away with a 1/4 long. Again, I got this weird paranoia about running out. Even though I know I could add string, I just know that that's just going to slow down the whole build, and yeah, it's just discouraging. You know, you're in a rhythm, you're ready to go, and then suddenly you're like, I need to add some string, and I don't have this color, and I gotta find some. And yeah, it's just for me, it's just, I'd much rather have, you know, some wasted string at the end of the day than to waylay a whole energetic feeling. Because let's face it, I mean, there's times where, you know, you couldn't make a bracelet, you couldn't tie something, and then you're like, oh, and you don't pick it up for days because, you know, your mood isn't there any longer. So this is how I keep the mood going. I have everything that I need at my disposal when I'm ready to go. So you can see now we're getting down to the last ones, and that hole in the middle, like there's almost nothing there. Kind of tie off the last knot, and then there's the needle and string, and pull it through. Okay, so here's the base. Let's see if I can kind of zoom in on that. I think it came out amazing. It's really fun. And it did really make the whole bag square. So that's that. As far as the distance between here and here, yep, totally matched it up. That was exactly as I had originally planned. Like I said, originally this would have just been a straight candy stripe coming down here, and then this would have been a candy stripe as well. And I kind of like how this came out instead. I think this really kind of gives it more interest. The trying to fake the random ended up with having weird lines and stuff kind of going through it. But I'm not hating that. I think there's a certain aesthetic to the whole thing. And like I've said before, when it comes to being random, trying to fake being random doesn't really work. You can sort of see where, you know, it's just different. So if you wanted to do a random but have it come up less frequently, you could change the dice to, say, like the D&D type dice. So if you use like a D10 or a D20, then you could have much longer rows, and that would potentially solve that whole thing. So maybe that's something I might do later on. Who knows? I mean, I kind of want to get back into doing a lot of the pattern stuff again, because, you know, I think that was like one of my strong points, and that, you know, something I can really teach. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you've got ideas of stuff you'd like to see me try or whatever, I could always use a little inspiration myself. So I got a couple projects on the dry erase boards over here that I'm kind of looking forward to, and I'll get to work on that so we can have another video next week. All right, so Until then, don't get your strings in a bunch.